This is where the fun begins.
Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Say my name.
And here we go.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Grab your snacks, get your popcorn ready. It's about to get realish. I am Christopher Negrón, and today I'm joined by my two esteemed co-hosts. First, we got my guy.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? You already know who it is. It's Matthew.
What's going on, everyone? It's Derrick.
And we're excited to bring to you another big discussion on a funny topic, actually, which I'm looking forward. I'll let Derrick intro that, but also
Yes,
a
sir.
featured presentation, Knock at the Cabin, M. Night Shyamalan, Shyamalama Ding Dong. It's about to get really, really intense on this episode. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before we get into all of that, please, everybody, if you're watching this on YouTube or listen wherever you're listening, please make sure you subscribe if you have not done so yet. You can follow us at OTS Media Co. all social media platforms. OTS Media on YouTube. Hit that like button, subscribe, the notification bell. Subscribe on all podcast platforms. Leave a review. Let us know what you guys think. We do actually want to hear from you guys. And if there's any type of discussion that you want to actually hear us have, let us know. We're open to suggestions. You can send an email too if you want at Derrick or Derrick at otsmediaco.com. So we'll set up that company email address pretty soon, but just go ahead and send it there, and let us know what you guys think. So yeah, the first topic before we get into was Knock at the Cabin, kind of wanted to get y'all's take on what you all think is the most difficult genre to create in film or television. Because I was the reason why this actually hit is because I was preparing. So I haven't seen it yet. Excuse me, but John Wick 4, just came out this weekend, and so I was preparing. I'm rewatching the first three, which I just got to the third one today for during dinner. So I'm looking forward to finishing that off. But I started thinking about it. I'm like, there's a lot of different genres that it takes a lot to create. And then like you add on the pressure of, like, if you're talking about television, like how creating for television, how different that is than it is for just a film. So I wanted to get y'all's take on it, see where you guys thought. What do you feel is the most difficult genre to create in film or television?
Matt, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because what we consider difficult is very subjective at times, right? And I think it's especially different between directors, screenwriters, and everything of that sort. But I think maybe from an audience perspective and sort of what I imagine to be like really difficult to pull off, I think are comedies. And I think the reason being is because you're filming in front of a crew, you have no live audience, you have no way of knowing if your jokes are landing until you watch the film yourself, right? And I think, especially since comedy is already so subjective, what I find funny is different than what you two are gonna find funny, right?
Yeah.
You have no way of knowing if what you're doing is actually working, so to speak.
Right.
And I think even with comedies, you have sort of like subgenres within comedies. You have dramatic comedies, you have fantastical comedies, and making sure that comedy is introduced at the right time and not taking away from the emotional moments of the story is also difficult to pull off, right? Especially whether it be like lighthearted animated movies or uh, you know, even R-rated movies, right? It doesn't necessarily matter, right? It's sort of,
Mm.
it's I don't know. I think it's just like I can imagine sort of like how stressful it is to make sure that what you're producing is actually funny, you know?
Hmm.
And like I said, you really don't know until the final product, and then you either watch everyone relish in what you made or completely hate on it. And there's really no in between when it comes to comedies for the most part. Either people hate it or love it, and
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good point. I never thought about the like no having like not having an audience there to give feedback, because like you used to have live audiences for television shows, and now you don't have that anymore. That's I never even thought about that, because yeah, because like y'all remember the scene in Fresh Prince where Will Smith, Will's talking to Uncle Phil and talking about his dad, and what, how come you don't want me, all that stuff,
I
like
love how you're
that
laughing like
scene.
that was a
I,
comedy scene.
you
Like,
know, you know why I laugh, because I immediately thought about the memes that came from that, like talking about like James Harden, like versus the championship. Like, how come you don't want me? Like, so that's why I was started laughing at that. But they got the immediate feedback from that, right? Like, God, I never thought about that. That's a great point. That's a
And
great
I think
point.
what you brought up even ties into it further, because the improvisation factor, I think, exists a lot more in comedy than other genres. Like you,
Hmm.
and I feel like it's hard to pull it off because a lot of the times, like, what works isn't always what you think is going to work, and that goes for every script, like not just
Right.
comedy, but uh always when you're on set, there's a lot of times where it's like, actually, let's just do it this way, and then it changes the way you approach the rest of the script because now it's different, right? So
Right.
I would say, yeah, comedy is very difficult. It's up there as far as finding the right moments, coming in with a good plan, right? Because you could come in with a good plan to be funny, and then everyone's there doing it, and you don't really
Hmm.
feel it the same way. Or you could be in a room, and I've had this before too, where y'all are recording everything and you don't see how it comes together while you're together. Like the editing is really the
Yes.
magic that brings it together. So you
Yes.
could be going through something, and by the time you record that fourth take, you're like, oh, this is ass. Like, but then by the time you see it on the actual finished product, it comes across way different. So, 100%.
Right.
I think it's hard too because with the improv factor, like, yeah, it's really great that you get a spur of the moment like that lives on in infamy, right? But
Hmm.
a lot of the times when you do stuff like that as a crew, you're kind of not ready for it, right? So there's a
Hmm.
lot of things that could go wrong in the in between. Maybe you have multiple cameras going at the same time and one angle is not really set up to cover what that improv is covering, right? So
Right.
now you have to make decisions like to fit that in, which is a good
Hmm.
problem to have. Don't get me wrong. If something works, it works. But
Hmm.
yeah, it is very. I would imagine it's very hard to find that magic and sort of keep that sustained throughout the entire project. So for sure.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that the improvisation element is important too because I think a lot of times, actors, can really I think it can start to realize how repetitive something is, you know? Because I think
Hmm.
a lot of comedies sort of fall into that trap where, they're pretty much saying the same kind of joke over and over and over again, you
Hmm.
know? Um, and then I think also like improvisation um can obviously bring out the can bring about really good moments, but I also think it's over overrated to an extent because I think sometimes actors will take advantage of that
Hmm.
and they'll go a bit too far when I think sometimes comedy needs to be like held back a little bit, you know? Uh and that's the thing too, because it's really difficult to sort of like I don't know, because there's a lot of sort of like nuances to comedy, right? Like
Hmm.
you have a lot of like you have raunchy comedies, you have I mean, I don't even I can think of like I even said before, like dramatic comedies or fantastical comedies or anything like that, where you sort of have comedies having like a comedy having to work in conjunction with something else, and that adds a bunch of layers to the movie itself, but also probably makes it even more difficult for the creatives involved, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
having to make a compelling story, but making sure that whatever it is you're doing is marketed as a comedy, is marketed as a dramatic comedy, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't
Yeah,
know. I think sort of what crossed my mind there, but
that's interesting. That's interesting. Chris,
For
what about
sure.
you, bro?
So for me, I'm kind of glad that you went first. That's why I threw it, because I was like, man, I got two answers, and either way, I don't care, but I kind of wanted to be sorted out for me. So thank you. My answer to this one kind of goes in line with the movie we're gonna be talking about a little bit later. But I personally think, and why I love this genre of filmmaking, I think suspense and thrillers are really the most difficult movies to create, in my opinion. I think for multiple reasons. I think there's a lot of times where you could lose sight of the audience when you're on set and you're sort of doing the same. Like you need to hit these beats, right? Like you know what the script
Mm-hmm.
is, you know what this moment is conveying, but more often than not, you're recording the most dramatic moments, the most insane moment, or the biggest reveal earlier on than
Mm-hmm.
you are a lot of the more mundane stuff, right? So like
Right.
you could be in a situation where as a crew you haven't even gotten to the crux of the story, but you're shooting one of the most impactful scenes first. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to sort of put yourself in that place and be in the right place, if that makes sense, because
Mm-hmm.
you could sort of bring your own juice and be in the right headspace, but then when it comes to the final product, it's like, man, they're not hitting their marks really, because
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of overdone. So I would say definitely thrillers, because and I'll get into this more specifically with the movie we're going to talk about, but if you fall flat with the thriller, by the time you're like 40 minutes in, you don't really care. Like the stakes aren't there for you. You're not really
Mm-hmm.
interested in the story, more so than just like information just blindly being thrown at you. So then
Right.
it puts you in a place as an audience where it's very easy to be hypercritical of everything else. So you're like
Mm-hmm.
annoyed with the way things are advancing. You're annoyed with these things more so than immersed and waiting to figure out what's going to happen next. And that's really the
Mm-hmm.
key, right? You want to put them in a place where you want more, right? But you have enough curiosity that that want means something. At the end of
Right.
the day, when we're watching a movie, we want the story to end, right? We want to come
Mm-hmm.
to a conclusion. Um,
Yeah.
so I think the hardest part is really keeping your audience throughout and knowing how to do that over the course of a film where you're sort of building up to these different moments, and these moments, if one of them falls flat, or if the reveal, for example, or the big moment at the end isn't
Mm-hmm.
like the gravity for that moment isn't set up properly, then the entire sort of moment that we were waiting for the whole movie, it doesn't really matter. Like at the end, it's just like, oh yeah, that was gonna happen anyway. Like so,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, we'll get into that more specifically with Knock at the Cabin, but I think it's
Yeah.
pretty tough to do thrillers for sure.
So let me ask you about that, because like being on set, I know like my first time being on any set, uh y'all know I hate spoilers, right? Like I can't stand spoilers. So I'm not sure if you've ever experienced this, Chris, but like have you ever been on set and you're recording the ending like you said, like day one or day two, and then it's like, dang man, like if you didn't read the script, like you don't know what's actually happening, right? Has
For
that
sure.
ever happened with you where you're like you're pissed that you got the ending of the story?
I think when it has happened, I haven't really felt it because I wasn't the one like setting everything up. Like when it has happened, I was just there to help. So it's kind of like you're just doing
Oh,
everything,
okay.
right? But
Yeah.
whenever I set things up as an AD, I'm always very conscious of that. Like you need to set up your first day to be as action packed as possible, but also as easy to gain momentum as possible. Like you want to feel like you're coming downhill so that by the time
Mm-hmm.
you're getting into the more serious scenes like that, day two, day three, there's a chemistry and a connection there that we built through the hard work from the first day. So I think
Right.
I always try to be mindful of that, to not like start at day one. Now sometimes, right? For example, this has happened to me. Sometimes certain restrictions for those scenes force you to do those certain things. So for example, one time with a film I shot, we shot a scene during golden hour in the morning, and that was a
Mm-hmm.
very important scene in the film. But it was later on in the film, but we had to get it done that morning so we could continue shooting through the rest of the day, right? So
Right.
it does happen. But yeah, I think it does kind of set a different vibe, because when you're going through everything as a crew, like everything is so fragmented. Like
Mhm.
a lot of the times whenever I'm watching the film in its entirety, it's like, damn, this is what we did, because it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
feel like that at all. Like
Yeah.
the way things happen chronologically and the way they happen in order in the movie are way off. So
Way
a
off.
lot of the times, for me, I guess when planning, it's just like make sure we have enough momentum to make those impactful scenes work the way they should. Because if you're not
Mhm.
in your character yet, if you still are asking a lot of questions about how you're sort of encountering these different moments as a character, then it's going to be hard for you to really deliver on those big moments early on. So yeah, I
For
think
sure.
it really does set you up for a tough situation if you're starting with big scenes like that, because not only is it impactful, but it also takes time, right? Like those big
Mhm.
heavy scenes are the ones most of the time where you're doing the most things for it. So
Mhm.
if you're not really in a place where you're comfortable, then it's like you're getting comfortable as you're doing the hardest things. So yeah,
Right.
definitely tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been on set in a few years, but it is definitely a different thing when you're watching the final product than from when you're shooting. Those are two different feelings for sure. Um, I would say uh I actually think one of the toughest, which now you've actually got me thinking, Matt, like because I honestly didn't even think about comedy that way. Um, but I think horror is actually one of the toughest to do because it's so cheesy, right? Like it's only so much that you can do that would allow you to stay in this pocket of horror, right? And you're kind of limited, and um some stuff's already been overplayed, and you kind of understand the beats to the story and how certain things can actually operate and flow. And um I would say one of the reasons why I think that is it's kind of difficult to do is because um if you look at what's it called, The Walking Dead versus The Last of Us, right? Like both horror genres, right? One gets it completely right, one gets it completely wrong, right? It's excuse me. You can see it with films too. What was the name of that one that we talked about? That was came out on HBO recently. Um, I think we did
Barbarian.
a Barbarian. Yeah. It's like it was so Barbarian was so like overplayed in certain aspects. Like you could tell where where it was um it had potential, but then you saw where it left off, right? And I just think that horror is just one of those genres where it's like you can either get it completely correct or you completely miss. Like there's no in between in it, right? Like doesn't matter if you're talking about television or film. Um, but I think the ones that get it right understand the subtle nuances that you have to have. Like you're gonna have to have those shocks, right? Like what was the name of that series? Paranormal Activity. Excuse me. Paranormal Activity. I thought, Chris, what was the look, bro?
Bro, those movies are so fucking stupid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Those movies are terrible. Like, that's a conversation for another day, for sure.
Yeah, we actually need to have that one. But like, so the reason why I think it's up until I didn't watch the one. Ooh, I forgot the name of it, but it was the one in I think it was in New Mexico or something like that. Um, I forgot the name of that. I think that was either 4 or 5. I didn't watch it because I don't mess with Ouija boards. I was I saw that was on the poster. I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that. But like up until that point, I actually thought the series was phenomenal because it was like these little times where you think you're gonna, the shoe was about to drop, right? Like something's about to happen. Told you about to come out of nowhere and kill people, right? But there were times where it's like it's building you up, and then it's like, no, relax, building you up, relax, it's okay, and then oh, you kind of like trust that it's okay, and then as soon as you trust it's okay, boom, it scares you, right? So that, like, I think those little subtle aspects of horror, I appreciate that. When a horror film or a show does not have something like that, to me, that's when it's just lost, right? So I thought, like I said earlier, The Walking Dead did a phenomenal job with it at the beginning, but then they lost their way with it. Um, they lost their way probably around like season 5, I think.
Earlier than that, I would say season 3.
When when
Season
did
three,
when did
that once the
when did
threat
Glenn
of the
die?
zombies really went down. Oh, he died. He died like season. I think it was like season 5 or
3,
something like that.
5. That
It was
okay? So
much
they
later
they
on.
lost
Yeah,
it. They lost their compass.
they lost it before that though. I agree.
They
I
did,
agree.
but it's like once he was gone, it was like that's over. Like for me, that's like it was. I compare it to like when I started watching WWE. Is like when Eddie Guerrero died. It was like it's just like that's kind of like how I compare it. Is because like he was the glue that held everything together. But then it's like as soon as you lost the glue, is everything is just going all over the place. And I don't think they ever. I stopped watching that show so long ago, so I don't know if they ever
Yeah.
did actually bring it back together. But it was one of those things like they just their loose ends just stayed loose. Like they never tied them up, right? So I think that's the there's a delicate balance you have to have with horror that a lot of filmmakers get it right or they get it wrong. Again, there's just no in between, you know. And I actually like horror. I didn't think
Yeah.
that I liked it, but I like horror.
It's an underrated medium. I think you
Yeah,
can tell a lot of compelling stories. Sometimes the threat doesn't necessarily have to be a monster, but sometimes you know, the worst monsters are in fact human. I think a lot of
right.
horror stories have
Like that.
communicated that exact
Yeah.
message, right? But I think also another point as well is like I think horror films, modern horror films,
Mhm.
and I'm sure you two have noticed this where for whatever reason, whenever a jump scare happens or is about to happen, they play the exact same noise,
Mhm.
and that has irritated me so
Mhm.
much because I think the worst thing you can do is inform an audience when something is going to happen. I think
Right.
sometimes directors moving forward should really just consider having complete silence, where the only thing we hear, that's not the rains, but the only thing we hear are the screams of a main character, or
Mhm.
at the very least their reactions to whatever or whomever they expose themselves to. you
Mhm.
know so that's sort of one thing. And then I think even like on the thriller, this is probably more so the thriller aspect, even the horror movie aspects too. I think framing is very important too,
Mhm.
because it's important not to reveal um I don't know how to explain it, but this assuming for sake of conversation, let's assume like there's like some threat of some kind or whatever. It's important not to reveal what the threat is too soon. And even in a lot of scenes as well, sometimes it's better to really fade the backgrounds and
Mhm.
keep the character in frame to where all we're seeing is their reactions,
Mhm.
their emotions, their even like the link, like everything. Like it's better to see what the characters are doing in that moment then cutting back to what the threat is. I honestly, I'm like stuttering all over the place. So what I said probably made no fucking sense, but hopefully it did. Like basically,
No.
like sometimes it's better. Like I think like framing when it comes to filmmaking, framing is very important too. So sorry, like I said,
No, you're
I
good.
No, you're
stuttered
good.
the mess
I
out
was
of
about
it.
to say,
So
just to help you out a little bit,
yeah,
I think what you're specifically referring to is focal length and like having longer lenses, which once again, it's a weird way to speak. It's almost like learning Spanish because you're speaking
Yeah, yeah.
backwards, right? Like a long lens is actually most of the time in length, it is actually larger, but the millimeters are also
Boss.
larger as well.
yeah. No,
I walked right into that one.
I didn't even think
I
about
walked
that.
right into that one. But hey, you gotta take it where you could get it, you know. But yeah, when you're
that's what she
dealing
said.
when you're no, hey, I did that one on purpose. I'm
Oh.
leaning in at this point. But as far as longer lenses and shooting with them, a great sort of sequence where they use long lenses in the film we're going to talk about later was the initial sort of encounter between Leonard and Wynn, where they're showing their conversation as almost like a face-off, like a standoff kind of. And all you see is them, like you said, and everything else is really blurred out of focus. You can see the stuff is there, but you can't really tell what it is. And like you said, what that does is not only does it give them the full attention, right? But it also doesn't tip you off to what you were saying, like threat level wise, right? You want to put these people on an equal playing field, but you also want to make it clear that that it's important to see how they're responding. And that's something that I liked about this film too, is like a lot of the stuff I can't even think of a moment where they probably use like a 50 or like a regular lens. A lot of this stuff was either fully wide or in tight using focal play. So 100%.
Yeah. But like to your point though, that not only does it do those things, but it also kind of creates angst in the audience. Like you can't see what's about to come, right? And even if you hear noises or like with that first scene you're talking about, they kept like showing the forest, right? You can't, like, there's nothing there, like you don't see anything there, but you're anticipating something's about to happen, right? So it kind of like creates that angst of like, you're thinking of, you're just anticipating about like what's about to happen. And I love that, right? Like I think to your point too, Matt, like there are different elements that within sound design and framing that I think a lot of filmmakers probably got away from, especially in horror, but I think a lot of filmmakers got away from it. Sound design is super important, and I don't think that a lot of emphasis is on sound design as much as it should be.
Yeah,
because you can have a great shot, but if you don't have any sound, like it's just it's tasteless. It's like there's nothing there. It's not seasoned. So yeah, I agree with you on that one.
It feels very fake. Like there's so many things you can do sound wise to make things that aren't there. But there's also like, and this is the part that people take for granted for sure, especially in my experience in all the shoots that I've done, not just ones that I've AD'd. Like if you're not getting proper sound of the actual dialogue, and it's like, okay, we'll recreate that in post. Like that's easy to say, right? Logistically, it's easy to re-say your lines and throw them in there. But when you are actually layering and trying to get it to feel real, just the ambient noise of this room, right? Like all three of us are talking in different rooms right now. So when we speak, the way our voices reverb is different. The same thing goes if you're in the same room. So if you're in a certain area of the room, you could sound a little different than the other area. So a lot of the time, what people underestimate is like the in-between sound, because if the in-between sound gets messed up, a lot of times people are just like, yeah, we'll just record over it. And I'm like, nah, we got to do that again because we didn't get it. Like, y'all, what do you not understand? We didn't get it. And a lot of what makes sound design brilliant, in my opinion, is they're forgotten on set all the time. I'm the biggest advocate for sound. I'm always telling people to shut up. But a lot of times people, they don't care. And it's just like, all right, we'll take care of it later. But then once later comes, they underestimate that even if we got perfect sound on every single shot in the film, they still have to do things to layer this sound correctly.
Yeah.
So if we're adding to that burden by making them make the sound of the actual shot, like it's like it fully takes out all the work you did of shooting in person. You might as well have done it like in CGI, like in a in a random booth in a green screen. Like it's almost worth doing that, because then even though it's fake, because it looks fake with the CGI, it feels more real. And I know that probably sounds insane, but that's how powerful sound is, for real.
It really is. It really is. I you can tell, especially with voiceover, um, you can tell in different scenes when it's being done, right? Especially if the sound, like you said, like if they don't record in the same space, um uh or they don't reshoot, like you can tell the difference between what was actually recorded on that location or what was recorded in a post. I if that whole like do it in post thing is, to me, and I know there are a lot of people in film production that just lean on that. To me, that's the dumbest thing you can do. If you're right there, like we're not talking about a days where we're shooting on film, right? Unless you're Christopher Nolan. We're not talking about that. We're talking about shooting on an SD card or CD card or what, like you're recording digitally, right? So it's not like it's going to cost you more like paying for film. You might be there on set for 15 minutes longer or whatever to reshoot a scene or something like that. It might cost you in that way, or cost you in terms of like, you know, renting a space or whatever. But for the most part, you don't have to pay extra depending on where you are or the scenery, scenario, I should say. Um, you're not having to pay more to record again, to shoot again, right? It's just do it again. Do it again. Doing it in post is a cop out to me. That's a cop out. Like it should be done right then and there, no questions asked. And in the most dire situations, if you have to do it in post, do it. But if you're able to do it right then and there, do it. It's like it's a no-brainer to me. I don't understand how some filmmakers just rely on that and say, hey, yeah, we'll do it in post, let's go ahead to the next scene, set up for the next scene. Nah.
And you know how you can
Sorry.
tell the movies that are doing that? It's the ones that have consistently loud soundtracks, because they're trying to hide the ambience. And there's something about, as me as an editor, that it fucking bothers me when, like, for
Yes.
example, in dialogue scenes, this is what you see the most in like short films, right? I would say, like, compared to like big budget movies, you see this more in short films. But like they'll be having a conversation, and each time it cuts back, it sounds like they're in a different place. Like like dudes
Right.
just sound like they're having
Yeah.
two completely different conversations. And the ambient noise, like, make sure, this is my, to all you young crews out there, make sure that you record at least 2 minutes of ambient tone with everyone in the room. Not
Yeah.
everyone leaves and then,
Leave.
all right,
Yeah.
let's record the sound. It's different
Yeah.
when there's people in there breathing. It is a different ambient noise than it is entirely quiet. So make sure you get your ambient noise, because then if something comes in post, you can fit it in properly. But speaking to what you were saying, just to sort of hit that point home further, the reason why it costs so much in post is because you're paying twice. You pay to get them to do it again, and then you have to pay the hours to edit it correctly to make it work. So it's like a double dipping kind of thing. And I understand as an AD how sometimes shooting it again isn't the answer, right? Sometimes you got to keep doing what you got to do. You got to keep it moving for whatever other stuff you have in the day. But yeah, when someone does that and they make those choices to do it in post, it suffers for sure. Like, it's very obvious.
Yeah, and I think you brought up an interesting point too, about soundtrack, because I think soundtracks are often a very forgotten component of horror films. The right ones aren't overbearing. The right ones are intimate. The right ones sort of know when to really hit their hit their motifs and make sure that whatever sounds are playing are an extension of the story. You know, um, I think like because horror films horror film soundtracks are really difficult to pull off because obviously you don't want there to be like pop music playing in the middle of like in the middle of a chase scene or anything like that, and you definitely don't want to like keep repeating the same track over and over again. You want to have some diversity there as well. I think even like um bits of a soundtrack playing when preparing for a big reveal is also important too, right? Because I think I spoke to Derrick about this too. Like, and this goes for any movie, but like, you never want to tell an audience how they should feel about something. They should feel about something because they genuinely, like, they're genuinely engaged with what they're watching. You should never rely on music to manipulate the audience into anything. So, and that's really why I complain about. Well, this more so had to do with the use of sounds, but that's really why I complain about sort of what modern horror films are doing now is where they're like every 5 seconds, like it'll cut. Assume there's a hallway. The camera moved to the right. Oh, nobody's there. Moves back to the left. Oh, somebody's there, and then all you hear is like the doom, like the same noise, or you have like the same generic buildable, like da, and then jump scare happens, and so yeah, I think like sort of what you guys are really like alluding to is just how all of these components of filmmaking have to come together, otherwise, if one doesn't work, I mean, the movie doesn't work, you know,
Yeah,
for the most part,
most definitely.
for the most part.
Yeah,
But
no, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then one last thing I wanted to mention too, that I thought of while you were saying that, Matt, is like, I don't know if you guys remember that scene in The Walking Dead where, right in the first episode where they already ate the biscuits and the old lady, she's already kind of turning, right, and you see her doing weird things in the background, but there
The
isn't
Last of
any
Us.
sound. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I
Yeah,
said the
yeah,
wrong thing. Sorry.
yeah,
But
good.
yeah, I said The Walking Dead. Kill me. But literally during that scene, it's fucking silent, and there is
Yes.
no like you don't even hear her making noise, but you could tell she probably is, right? But
Mm,
that choice, for example, is a great example of like the what makes a soundtrack good is like it doesn't have to be overbearing, it doesn't have to be in your face, but also if it's not there, if you don't notice that either and you're just existing in it and you're feeling that moment and the fear of what she can become, right? Especially if you are familiar with the series at that
yeah,
point, it keeps you drawn towards
yeah,
her just
yeah,
because of what she's doing. And there's no added compound. Like they could have done so many different things sound wise to that to key you in on hey, this lady's turning. But the fact that it was fully silent, it made you like consider the possibilities,
and
right? So like, go
yeah.
ahead, sir.
oh no, no, I just like sorry, and you just made me think about something too. It's like because obviously we spoke about how like I forgot the name of the shot you said earlier, like the focal the fo- focal
Focal length.
the focal length, right? Where
Hmm.
you can blur out like certain parts of the frame. I think sometimes like it, maybe this is me like overthinking, but sometimes like I like the uses of that because it's meant to show that as an audience we're aware of what's happening, but the only reason why certain parts of a frame are blurred out is because the character in the context of the scene isn't aware of what's happening, and sort of that's what like delivers like tension, right? Because as an audience we're following characters, right? And when we have knowledge of something that they're not aware of, right? Then and obviously you write the characters well enough where you want to root for them, then that's what really brings evokes a lot of fear, right? Maybe it's
Yeah.
not a fear in the sense of again like a character getting chased on the hallway. Sometimes it's just fear because you love the character so much that you don't want to see him meet a terrible fate, so
Right. No, I
you,
agree with that. I agree with that for sure. I think I just want to see horror done properly. Like it's like the more time that goes by, the less. I mean, like the more time that goes by and the better technology gets, the less quality we get with horror, and which makes me look forward to, like, I don't look forward to Halloween as much as I used to when it comes to films or television, because horror is just not that great, right? It's one of those genres that you again, you either hit it or you don't. And it's just one of those things that I think I really do hope that as technology, continues to advance, especially with like AI and stuff like that, I hope that they're able, a lot of filmmakers are able to incorporate different aspects properly um without losing the goal, right? The goal is to scare. I don't feel scared, man.
Yeah,
I don't feel scared.
for sure. There's a lot
All
of ways
right.
to cut that pig for sure. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think that maybe that'll be a fun like challenge for us, right? So like go do a deeper dive on these genres and sort of come up with examples that we feel are good examples of the genre and sort of have like a
Yeah.
versus with that. Maybe that'll be a cool episode down the
Ooh,
line, sort of coming up with different defenses of these genres, right? So yeah, we'll
that'd be
see.
nice. That'd be good. I would love to see that. I love to see that. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna get into 2023. Um, what was this on HBO? No, what was it? Peacock. I'm
Peacock.
sorry,
Mhm.
Peacock. Yeah. 2023 Peacock film. The last. No, Jesus. Knock at the Cabin. I'm sorry. I am so off. I apologize, but Knock at the Cabin. Coming. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Dwayne from Pastor Ox and Life's a Botch podcast. I'm coming to you with a real dope advertisement if you got a moment. Can we do that? Peep this. Yo, you tired of that uncomfortable feeling with your undergarments? You know what I'm talking about. Like, literally having to adjust so it gets real comfortable in between the real safe space. Or maybe just wedgies from just going underneath, you know what I mean? All that. Let's keep it in 100. Y'all know how I'm feeling. Y'all know how that feeling goes. Well, I want to introduce to you the ultimate solution coming from the #1 premium and fit athletic wear just for you. I'm talking about none other than Champ #1 Boxers. Champ #1 Boxers is a black-owned underwear brand, okay? They literally specify in giving you the most top-notch, high-quality, premium, adjustable and fittable and totally comfortable undergarment wear that is just for you. Not only is it something that you can wear, feel good in, feel confident in, and love, but it's also high quality, feels good, and most importantly, it is definitely fashionable, okay? Comes in a different, wide variety of so many different styles and themes to these undergarments, something to make you look good, feel good, and swag real good in the process, all right? So, again, did I get to mention that this is also a black-owned brand? It's a black-owned brand, y'all, so if nothing else, definitely go support that 100%. So, what I want to do is I want to tell you, head on over to OTS Media Co. on all social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. If you go over, you click the link in the bios, it'll take you straight to the Champ #1 Boxers website. You can check out all their styles, you can check out their bundle deals, you can check out why this brand exists, what it's all about, and trust me when I say you do not want to miss out on the types of opportunities going on right now on the site. Champ #1 Boxers. Make sure you do it for the champ in your life if you ain't already doing it for yourself, champ. All right? Champ #1 Boxers. Make sure you go cop those. All right? All right.
What's going on, guys? Here we are back at it with our feature presentation, Knock at the Cabin, directed by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong, and starring Dave Bautista, Jonathan Groff, Ben Aldridge, and a number of other talented actors. And it revolves around a young girl and her parents being taken hostage by foreign armed strangers who are then demanded that they make an unthinkable choice to avert the apocalypse. With limited access to the outside world, the family must then decide what they believe before all is lost. And it goes without saying that this was a movie I knew existed, but I never watched any of the promotional materials. I never looked up scenes. So I went into this totally oblivious, so to speak. So, yeah, I guess with that, what were your guys' thoughts on the movie? I know M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong doesn't have the best track record. He's been known to be very inconsistent. But that does sort of dissuade you from watching it, or was it sort of something that, you know what, it sounded like an interesting premise. I'm willing to sort of, forego my thoughts on M. Night and just watch the movie and see how it is.
See, I didn't feel that. I want to say probably one of the first films. I don't think it was the first one I saw from him, but it was one of the first ones that I watched in film school, where I actually studied the film. Pan's Labyrinth.
Really
That
good
was
movie.
that was amazing, and anytime I see him attached to a project, I'm automatically intrigued. Yeah, I'm automatically intrigued. I think that uh one thing that for me, I don't think any filmmaker hits on every project they do. I think there's a lot, like Michael Jordan didn't hit 100% of the shots he took, right? Like, so I don't expect anybody to hit every single time that they make something. Um, but I didn't have any problems watching this, and I didn't have any. Of course, y'all know I don't watch any trailers, so I didn't know what the movie was about. Um, but I enjoyed being able to watch the first scene drew me in for sure. And then, Chris, I'd rather you go ahead and take over, but because you were actually already talking about it before we got into this discussion. But that first scene was just captivating, man. Like it was like, I don't know, this little girl who plays Win, Kristen, I'm probably gonna mess up her last name, is Q or Quay or something like that. She was really good.
Mm-hmm.
She was very captivating as just just this little child. I actually enjoyed her performance a lot, but please go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think it's very hard to work with child actors in general, just because, I mean, there's a lot of self-explanatory reasons, but I think the most specific one is like the workload, and also understanding like what's being asked of them. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's very hard at that age. So a lot of the time, you get a lot of, and this isn't trying to shade, but you get a lot of like inconsistent performances, and I don't think hers was at
Mm-hmm.
all. I thought she did a very good job. I think in
Yeah.
general all the characters in this film are who they are, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not inconsistent in that way. They sort of come across. um I think there's a lot of things that this movie did well, and also a lot of things that it did very, very poorly. I agree. I really like the opening sequence, that first 15 minutes before anything else got introduced. Like I was really excited and intrigued in the movie.
Yeah.
Once we found out what the movie was about, um, the movie, in my opinion, kind of ended. Like once you found out what the movie was about, the movie ended because you knew what we were waiting on the whole time, right? Like once you found out
Yeah.
what the movie was actually about. So that first 15 minutes, I think they did such a good job with that back and forth, at making it look almost magical, right? Like almost like
Mm-hmm.
this is like a, a Earth version of Avatar, right? Like everything is very like we're in tune with nature. We're sort
Yeah.
of experiencing what it is to be at this cabin, um,
Mm-hmm.
and setting up the story. I think Dave Bautista is a great actor, man. I think he did a really good job
Yes.
at connecting in a very sincere way,
Mm-hmm.
not over pushing, right? Given his stance and what he's there to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in general, what I'm not gonna lie, I might get hate for this, but I don't care. I really felt like this movie once it was done, I was like, man, I can't believe that was an hour and 40 minutes because I felt like we were waiting for like these moments to happen, and these big moments they do happen. But like the reality of what is happening doesn't matter until the last like 15 minutes of the movie. And then when you're there, it's like, oh, really? Like, so what are you trying to tell me here? And I guess that's the question I'll throw back to you guys at the end. But there's a couple other things I want to touch on in the middle. I think what this movie did really good is like once you got into the bizarro world of it, and things were going crazy, right? People are getting hit. They did such a good job at not keeping you there for too long and bringing you back to other parts of this family's journey. To sort of give you a moment to feel, right, which is always good, but B, to take you out of that cabin. It's so hard to keep an audience captivated in one place regardless of what's going on in that one place. It's just very hard to keep the story driving forward. So I thought that was really smooth. All those cutaways. One of my favorite transitions in the film was it was from a different part of a memory to another part of the memory, but they like wiped the screen, and then once you got to the other side, you were like, oh, we're not there anymore, we're actually in the other part of the memory. That's good. So that was really cool. In general though, so that was the spot where they were exploring like the origin story of how they got Win. And then towards the end, you remember that transition where the screen wiped and then it continued on. So I really like that. But I think in general, this story is very straightforward, right? And for me, at least, by the time everything was done, the stakes as you're watching, they're not tangible, right? Until the last 15 minutes in the actual world, right? That they're living in. So it's very easy as an audience to fall in line with one of the fathers. I'm forgetting his name, but the one that was just like, they're lying. They recorded this. Like they knew what was going to happen.
Andrew.
So they're setting this up. Exactly. Father Andrew. He's setting this up to like trick us. They want us to do something real sick just for the sake of exploiting us. They're homophobic. Like literally as an audience, you're kind of just like, yeah, like that's the only thing that makes sense because these people are fucking crazy, right? But I think the fact that they were right and the fact that this was really happening in some ways kind of takes away from the movie because I feel like, I don't know, if it was that sincere and you guys were all true from the beginning, the threat of everyone and the way they revealed everyone coming in and them being villains in that way, I feel like if the threat was always real, that they should have been able to establish themselves as allies at some point. There's no reason why you should be shackling and tying these people down to get them to decide to kill their own family member. Like, in my opinion, if you are all on the same ship of this ship is sinking, and in order for us to live, one of us has to go, I think trying to fight people and throw them overboard isn't going to get you anywhere. So I'm glad they didn't do that. But at the same time, they did establish themselves as a threat very early on in this film. So then it kind of made me feel like as things were unfolding with him eventually going and getting the gun and all these different distractions and the moments where you see these characters sort of have changes of heart, everything was very predictable because as an audience, you are already on the side of, these people are bugging. So once it comes time to defend ourselves and to put ourselves in a position to get away, it's very easy to be like, okay, yeah, well, if it was that easy, then why didn't y'all do that then? Like, y'all got tied down and all this stuff before you was able to give a proper sort of opposition. So yeah, for me, I think where it fell short really is in the fact that, like, no matter how you slice it, like, they should have came correct in order to be believed because at the end of the day, they were correct. So if they wouldn't have set themselves up like these occult, strange people that are out fully to have some sort of sick game with this family, then I think they would have had a better shot at persuading the couple to actually do what needed to be done. Um, I hated the concussion stuff. Me personally, I just think it's so dumb. Like, especially because I'm such a big fan of fight sports and the way um they sort of discredited his opinion and his voice because of his concussion. I felt like that took away from a lot of the impactfulness of those scenes. And then even like everything, I think once the mother died, once the second character sacrificed herself, I think from that point on, the movie, there was no stakes for me because everything that happened was like it was gonna happen. Like we were just waiting for it to happen. We already knew the gun was in the car. We knew at some point they were gonna break out and find a way to get there. They had a tussle. This man gets stabbed 3 times, right? 3 times, same spot. And then they cut to him once he gets out, and there's like a fucking dot of blood this big on him. And then the next time they show him, he has a big hole. And I'm like, bro, like, yeah, fuck this up. Like, and as once again, Derrick, we know when we notice these things, it's very hard to take it out because then the next time you're like, oh, let's see how they fucked it up now. And of course, the next time they show him, the cut is 3 times bigger than it was the first time he got stabbed. But then the second time we saw him, it was non-existent. Like it was just like there was just a lot of really bad moments. Last note here, because we were on about focal length, so I thought I mentioned this. One of my favorite things in filmmaking is the dolly zoom. Do you know what that is, Derrick? The vertigo shot. I love me a vertigo shot. Is basically, to make a long story short, when you have the camera on a dolly or some sort of stabilizer, and as you are moving away or moving towards a subject, you are racking your focus as well as zooming out or zooming in to counterbalance so that the character is still in the same part of the frame, but everything around them is shifting. I love those shots, and whenever I see them, I'm like, please make it work. And there was one time that they did it, which was when Andrew had already gotten the gun and he's sort of come back and has to come to grips with what he's about to do. But then the way they did it, he was like, he was facing forward towards where his family is, but the camera was here. So so it's a profile shot. And it's like, man, you're just making this guy's head look big. Like you're not making it look like he's coming to grips with like you need to be head on so that what that does is like it's showing that character's moment of change, no matter what it is, right? But it's showing them coming to grips with that change. And you can't do that from a profile shot, bro. Like you can't do that from the side. So I got so annoyed when I saw that. And I was like, man, like I wanted this to be good. And then you ruined it for me. So a lot of points where I was disappointed here on this one. But ultimately, my question for you guys is, how, like, do you feel that the stakes were there? Like, do you feel like the payoff was real in this movie? Because for me, it was just like, well, if it was real, then why are you acting that way? Like, it's just very strange.
No, to answer your question, no. I didn't feel like I got much from the ending. Because I was actually told from a coworker that there was a twist, and then I'm like, I was looking for the twisting time. I was like, wait, let me go through the credits. There's a post-credit scene that I just didn't know was there. There was no twist. I didn't see a twist. I didn't feel a twist. Like everything, like you said, from the point that we knew this was an actual legit threat, from that point on, you knew what was gonna happen. Like there was no threat. That's like saying you thought like you went to go see Passion of the Christ and didn't know Jesus rose on the third day. Like you know what's about to happen, right? This is not a surprise. But to the shot you were talking about though, as well, they actually did that on another scene. I remember when Wynn was running, she had escaped for like a brief second, and then Leonard got her and brought her back in. Then when he closed the door, that force of the of that shot, the force was coming toward the door as well when they were doing that. So I agree. I love that's one of my favorite shots too. But something you said though about about it actually being real, the threat actually being real versus it being fake. I agree. I didn't even think about it like that watching it, but had it been fake, this would have been a significantly better movie. This would have been a significantly better movie because it'd have been one family member dying for no reason. And I don't know how agreeing, which I think this is one part of the film that I had an issue with. 4 strangers come into your house, tie you up, and tell you to kill a family member, right? And if you don't, one of our people die, right? So like 4 people into your house, one of them dies if you say no. Like, why do I feel compelled to save you for breaking into my house, threatening to kill me? You see what I'm saying? Like that was a part of the film I kind of had an issue with too. I didn't I don't necessarily like the fact that they were the 4 horsemen because I didn't think that this really did much. Like I don't think that really did much to drive the point home. Um I like the fact that they were 4 individuals that had this vision that they were compelled, hey, we got to go here and we got to do this, right? But I didn't like the fact that they were actually the horsemen and their death is what brought on the plague, right? I didn't really like that. And that's not a compelling aspect to me. Um because again, like you said, the first time you see it happen, now oh, the domino effect. Like there is nothing that's going to surprise you at that point. So I agree. The first part of the film, about 15 minutes of it, it's high energy. There's angst there. I actually think that Batista was the best part of the movie. Um, because you have, like you said before, like you have this 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 huge guy that has to be like more reserved. He's actually the calmest of all 4, which is actually pretty hilarious. But I don't know. I think the movie was cool. I think it's good to see one time, right? Like I think that there's no way I'm gonna watch this again. But it was cool. It was cool. I think what I would like to see, to be honest, after watching this, I kind of thought about a tag team. You know who I would like to see M. Night work with? Jordan Peele. I would not mind seeing that because I think that there's elements that in terms of the element of surprise that M. Night has kind of sometimes like he's hit or miss, to be honest. So it is what it is. But I think that's one aspect of his projects that I haven't seen or I don't recall seeing lately. Is the thing that makes you guess, right? That anxiety, that the bait. Like what's gonna hook you in to make you invested into the characters, right? I didn't feel fully invested in these characters.
Mhm.
Outside of Win, I didn't feel fully invested because I don't think they had I don't think it was Andrew and Eric, right? Yeah, Andrew and Eric. I don't think that we got to see them develop in the beginning too much, right? Like, why are you in the cabin? Right? Was that a getaway? Was that a vacation? Or was it because you felt like you needed to get away from society because you felt these pressures of life, right? Or you felt these judgments on you. That was a question that I had that I don't feel it was answered, and if it was answered, I don't remember what it was. I never picked up on it, right? So I think I'd have been a little more invested in those characters from the jump if we got to see something like that, right? Like we got to connect with Win because she's out there collecting crickets or and or grasshoppers and playing around and hey, there's this man that just comes out the forest. That wasn't creepy at all, right? Like that was very weird for him to be walking out the forest like that.
In a
But
dress suit. Like the man
bro,
looked like a therapist for sure.
like yeah, like what is going on? I like that. I like that. I felt connected to her character. Um, but I didn't feel as connected to Andrew and Eric until um later, but I kind of felt like it was a lost cause at that point.
Because
Right?
you were
Like
already disappointed in them.
already disappointed, right? Yeah, it was like I wanted more investment into those characters. So it'd have been nice to see something in the beginning to kind of like anchor them in. I don't think they had much of a foundation to build on. But the fact that we were starting to see their beliefs kind of like change a little bit, where Eric was more understanding of these intruders. Andrew, I completely understood. Get the hell out. Right? Like this is not that kind of party. Y'all can't just come up in here like that, right? I got that, but I don't know. I wanted more connection to those two guys because I thought that there was more that they could have done with them. I think their story could have been developed a little more. I thought that there was, for like you said, Chris, the amount of time that we had with this film, I felt like they kind of rushed into things. Like I think if they had a way to anchor these people in the beginning of the film, the same way they did when, I think the pace could have been a little bit better. I think the pace would have been a little bit better, but I think the film could have, like you said, like if this wasn't real, if they just make those changes and you have these psychopaths just come like oh that'd have been better. That'd have been a better film. That'd have been a better film, better all around film. Um, but I think for what it was cool. And I I don't know how else to describe it. It's cool. What did you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, both of you guys definitely summarized sort of where I stand, but I think um I'll put them into my own words. So I appreciate M. Night Shyamalan because he consistently makes original movies,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like are becoming few and far between, and the ones that are around aren't receiving as much attention as they should. So, and I also respect him for financing his own movies, right? And because I mean, even mentioned numerous times where like I think his first film was Signs, if I'm not mistaken, or could have been something else where he literally mortgaged his house, and
Yeah.
fortunately that ended up being a financial success, but you never know what comes with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in any event, I think this film had a fascinating concept, but was poorly executed for a number of reasons. Firstly, the pacing. I think it was a monotonous drag. Uh, I never, honestly, it's been a long while since I felt like an hour and 30 minutes felt like 3 hours, to me at least. And the weirdest part, and as you two have mentioned, is the movie sort of jumps from scene to, it's weird, like it technically jumps from scene to scene where we're not given as much time to really understand the ramifications of each person dying. Obviously, we end up seeing, new, like, live news footage of widespread death, and obviously planes falling out of the sky, and tsunamis and earthquakes forming in different parts of the world. um and obviously outside of that one bit of live footage, like, we never really see the true destruction that comes with each of their deaths. And I think maybe that could have been a bit expanded upon. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that they show like grotesque violence and things like that, but um maybe there could have been a different way to really, for as an audience, to understand the severity of it, rather than cheapening out and just showing a news broadcast happening. That's just me though. And I think another thing as well, when it comes to our main characters, so the family specifically, obviously you have the two fathers and then their daughter, when, you know I really expected me to like fully care about them. I think I definitely sympathize with their position. I think there were sort of a few moments that worked, whether it be like near the ending where, um I'm forgetting both of the father's names, but where, the father, before killing, his lover, like, or his husband, right, like, goes, like, the world hates us, like, why should we care about them, things like that. you know I think, like, dialogue wise, that worked. The problem is, because the movie kept like having these random flashbacks, like three random flashbacks in the movie, that disrupted the pacing. Again, it felt like it was like cheapening out. It felt like, as the script was being written, it was like, oh shoot, I kind of forgot, like, the I said, remember, write a scene real quick to make sure the audience is sort of sympathizing. Okay, now let's go back to the present day again. So like that, it just didn't feel like organic. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know, and then I don't know. I think, like, some of the dialogue at times, that you can tell, like, some of the actors were kind of struggling to, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, some of the dialogue was decent, and some of the dialogue was kind of like iffy at times, and you could definitely tell, like, when the actors were kind of struggling to deal with the material. And that, like, led to a lot of, like, really like weird line deliveries ever so often. I think, like, the best performances by far were Dave Bautista and Jonathan Groff. Jonathan Groff, for context, he was the one who had that concussion. So I think both of them did really well.
Yeah, that was
you
Eric.
know, so
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. I think, like, the whole Horseman. I'm assuming the twist was like the whole them being the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I was like, okay. I was like,
It's not a
but
A
twist.
the
twist
thing
is not a
too,
twist if they explicitly walk you
and
through
and,
it.
and that's the thing too,
Yeah.
is like, and that really irritated me too. And this is just something that irritates me in general, is I really hate when a character delivers exposition on something that we as an audience deserve to figure out. I do not
Right.
want and that's the thing about me with the script too, is that I can understand in the beginning, in the first 10 minutes, which was actually fairly suspenseful. You see the very first interaction with Gwen and Leonard, right? Like, Leonard's trying to actually form, a kind of friendship with Gwen before, obviously having to do what's being asked of him, right? But then, damn, I got so pissed, I forgot, I lost my train of thought. Wait, hold on. Um,
The exposition dumping.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. So exposition something. So then, obviously, like, it makes sense that they explain sort of their purpose there at the cabin. But then, like you said, Chris, because they explained so much, it reached a point where, like, I wasn't watching the movie because I was curious about what was gonna happen next. I was watching the movie because I wanted to see when that next thing will happen. You know what I mean? So that didn't make it like a worthwhile experience, you know, because if I know everything that's going to happen, either because I guessed or because the movie explicitly told me, then I'm not gonna really enjoy myself. And that's why there are a lot of times where I was looking down on my watch, I was like, okay, come on, like hurry up, like show the next person dying. They're all gonna die. Like I already know what's gonna happen. They're all gonna die. One is gonna make the sacrifice and the world gets saved. There you go. You know what I mean? And then when it comes to exposition dumping, like near the end too, he was like, "There four," like that was like the example, like the bad dialogue where it was like, "There are four horsemen of the apocalypse. They come here to determine us," and that I'm like, no, no.
It felt like the Avatar opening scene, like
Yeah.
air. This
You know?
horseman represents this, and I'm like, bro, what are y'all doing?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, but I will say there were but there was good. Like I said, the performances were decent at times, or not even decent. They were really good at times. But specifically from Dave Bautista and John DeGroff. And I think M. Night does a really great job. And this is why I'm led to assume about him. I haven't watched his other movies outside The Last Airbender, sadly. And I think he does a really great job at building suspense. He definitely knows sort of how to build up to moments and then executes them to near perfection. I think he did that a lot in this movie. You know, yeah, so I think, yeah, like I said, a lot of it's happened in the first like 15 minutes. Like the first 15 minutes were really like they captivating. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Now I'm curious to see, okay, so what is it going to lead to? Is it, you know, a homophobic cult that's holding imposters, or are they, you know, legitimately here to save the world, so to speak? That would have been an interesting question. I think the whole theme of, you know, sacrifice one to save the many is there. Like it's very easy to identify, you know, and I think it poses a question of ultimately, you know, like I said, on the whole topic of sacrifice, right? Like what are we willing to sacrifice, you know, for the future of our world, right? Whatever.
And the answer is nothing. And the answer is nothing until we see the world destroying, and then we're like, oh yeah, I guess we are the chosen few.
And
time to put you in the dirt.
And the whole cult's approach doesn't make any sense either, because they get, and this is another example of the writing thing I have. It's like they say, oh, we had visions that we like. I think in the movie, right? Because they said how they had visions of like also had the same vision, and they found each other like on the internet board or whatever. They communicated with each other, and then they met up, and then whatever, they have visions of like the family and stuff. But I think they even said too, like they envisioned like this is exactly how this was gonna go down. Or not even that though. I don't know. I still feel like there could have been so many different approaches to convince his family. You know, like I don't know. I thought maybe at some point they were gonna like inject the visions into like the family just so they see what happens.
Which would have been a lot easier and better than this. I think one other loose end they didn't capitalize off of was the connection between Andrew and Redmond, right? Like Redmond beat him in the bar. Like that was a legit hate crime. So Andrew's perspective was completely like, it was valid. I mean, even before he even recognized who this was, it was valid to say, hey, I think these are people that are a part of some type of cult. They you know, they want us to kill someone, so it felt like a hate thing as well, you know. Like I completely understood where he was coming from with that,
and they just didn't elaborate.
But they could have actually just like gone with that, like
like that initial struggle should have been like he should have been trying to explain himself. He should have been trying to redeem himself. There was no, like, his character didn't even exist. That man was dead like 7 minutes in after they got into the cabin. And real quick, what I don't understand too is like, shout out to the nurse, right? I can't even remember her name, but shout out to the nurse, because somebody, when they was reading this script, was like, no, 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 hold up, we need some representation here, because very quickly this was like the Charleston riots. Like, these dudes came in with the fucking, you might as well have had tiki torches along with those fucking makeshift medieval times weapons that look like they were
Which
created,
made no sense.
bruh. Like, they look like they were created for some post-apocalyptic scenario where the apocalypse
Yeah.
hasn't hit yet. We don't
Yeah.
need the fucked up makeshift weapons right now. That comes
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
So and that's what's so frustrating. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go on another outburst here, but
Go ahead.
all the ingredients for suspense were there. I was waiting for our sort of jigsaw moment, right? Where it's like,
Right.
well, you didn't listen to us, so now we all gonna die. And now,
Yeah.
because all of us died, it don't matter if you kill him. Now you're gonna kill
Yeah.
him, and then we all gonna die anyway. Like,
And-
something like that. Something where these people actually put themselves in a position to prove themselves as who they are. And with the obstacles of this hate crime, of this other stuff, you are battling with that as an audience. That's such a more impactful story than
Yeah.
these dudes
Yeah.
fully taking control within the first 20 minutes and then dictating what's going to happen for the rest of the story.
Now, why
Yeah,
in the
and
hell would you have a gun and leave it in the truck?
White people.
It's just, oh my gosh. Dang, I was gonna say something else, and I was like, oh my gosh. I'm sorry, just give me over here. Oh my god. I literally had it all across my mind.
But when I popped the trunk, hit the deck.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Dang, I freaking lost my train. Well, anyways, I think it was probably gonna like be an extension of what you guys were saying. Yeah, I literally forgot. But in any case, yeah, I think we're talking about sort of like theological things that happen to justify why the movie. It's same complaint me and Derrick had about Barbarian, literally. I mean,
that's
pretty much
exactly
identical.
what I was about to say too. Like,
Well, that's why
it's the same thing.
maybe horror
The
movies are
first-
impossible to pull off, or thrillers. For that reason, is you have to
But see,
find.
that's another thing. Why was this categorized as a horror film?
This is a horror film.
That's what I saw.
Oh man, I
Not
feel
a
like this
horror
was a
film at all.
I feel like this is a
It's
thriller.
nothing- It's a thriller.
There
This
are
is-
horrifying. It's a thriller of horrifying elements.
There was no
Right, and
horror in this
there
at
was no
all. There was
horror in
no
this.
jump scares. There was no fear of the group either, because you know someone's
None.
gonna die, but it wasn't even them. It wasn't the
Yeah.
family.
Oh,
So what are
oh,
you scared of?
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
and it just reminded me too. I think the thing that like sort of bothered me is I understand that like all because they act as the four horsemen, like all of them are meant to represent like different parts of life, so to speak. You know, like each of them sort of have their own
Archetype.
jobs, their own families, their own etc. Right, and they're sort of meant to symbolize, you know, what will be lost if the family doesn't make the ultimate sacrifice. What irritated me is that what else? It's like irritated me, but I'm sorry, I freaking pulled my phone because I thought got a freaking text message. Sorry about that.
You good?
But I think what sort of like bothered me to an extent is that they should have like done a better job, like the family, of like developing each of these characters instead of like shrouding them with so much mystery, you know, because if they're here for what's supposed to be an important mission, right, which it is, right, I think it's only fair that like we're given a bit more backstory to these characters instead of just like one-off lines, and then when they die, you know what I mean? Because I didn't feel like it's weird. And that's the thing too, because I don't know if we're meant to feel sympathy for them, or they're just meant to be viewed as these deranged cultists that just so happen to be correct. And I don't know what that
Which I think
was
is
supposed to be.
also, I think that's a little dangerous too, because like it's like you're trying to almost like create sympathy for people that are in cults, and I don't know how well, you know,
That message is received.
I don't know. It just I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a bad road to go down.
This whole film is a lesson in why it's important to show people and not tell people. Because if a
Yes.
lot of these things were shown to us versus told to us, and if there was a chance for these actors to act like they don't want to die beyond the I have a family, I have this, I I just had a fucking vision and now I'm here. Like even that wasn't present. So it really made it very easy for us to take everything Andrew was saying, dismissing these people at face value. They're like, yeah, like they aren't trustworthy. They aren't in a position to persuade me to do something, especially that drastic. So yeah, it was just like all the ingredients are right there for you, bro. Like
Yeah.
this, if you put them out the right way, I feel like this could have been a really much better film. But
Yeah. And this is the final thing too I want to say, and both of you touched both of you touched upon it. Sorry, whew,
You good, bro? I was gonna say
touched
pause.
upon it. Yeah, no. Yeah. Oh god, not even thinking about that, but of course, pause. It's sort of like you guys said, I mean, like Andrew, right? Andrew? Um, like he literally like had a hate crime committed against him, right?
Right.
Like they did nothing with that. And the
Nothing.
weird thing is, I don't know why they only had that one character connect to
for
him.
that, he should have been Batista. Batista should have been the one that, because then they're there the whole time. You killed this guy first. Like,
Yeah.
It's weird. And then all the other characters didn't share that same connection. You know,
They
I thought
had
maybe
no
it would have
connection.
been really cool if like freaking Dave Bautista ends up being like freaking Wen's teacher or something. Like I don't know, like
Something.
have like I don't know. I don't know. It's just it
Yeah.
was weird. Like I don't understand why they established that connection between Andrew and Redmond and they weren't gonna do anything about it because we're given a one line, like literally one line where it says, I went through therapy. Like that right there is sort of something you can really do, like to show like the effects that comes with having a crime like that committed against you, right? How traumatizing that is, how you sort of have to shield yourself from the world. Like that's a great well, obviously it's not a great thing to happen, but like it's a great sort of concept to deal with, right? Because then you can sort of teach audiences important lessons, right? That that no one should be discriminated against, etc. Like the movie doesn't make an attempt to do anything more than just be this overly long but like short thriller that didn't pause, that didn't, I was saying this funny last, but
No.
that didn't end in a satisfying way. Pause again.
Pause.
But yeah.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
much left to be desired in this. I I don't know. I mean, just even from the foundation, because again, like y'all said, if you're coming to share this, you're trying to convince these people to do something that no one would ever think, like no sane person would think to do. Why come aggressive? I thought the choice from the jump, with this movie wasn't the right one. Wasn't the right one. That's why I'm saying I think M. Night with Jordan Peele would be amazing because yeah, M. Night does a great job of building up, but so does Jordan Peele, right? But he can also like he gets it to that point where it connects to the end and the only thing I've seen from him that I didn't really enjoy was Nope because I don't understand what that movie was about. But the buildup was phenomenal. like it was good. It's just the ending. I was just kind of like, what? But there's so many layers to his films that I think you might need to go back and watch so that you can catch, XYZ for the ending to make complete sense. So that might be the whole case with Nope. But I think if those two paired together or team together, I think that would make a lot of sense. Like
Yep.
at least one time. At least one time. I don't know. I don't know. This movie, I'm just go ahead and say it, it's like average. It's not.
This is below average. Real quick, I want
I
to say
mean,
one more
at
thing, and then we'll get
best.
into our star ratings, right? We got to
Yeah,
give our
yeah,
star
yeah,
ratings here.
yeah.
I just quickly wanted to mention something that you said, Matt, because the potential that they had to capitalize on that moment, right? What did we actually get out of it? A Rocky montage where this man is in some dingy gym hitting a bag, and then that is the courage. You remember that? Yeah, that is the
Bro,
moment of
that's
courage that
yeah.
like bro, you could have
Bro.
you could have done so much more in a more impactful
Oh
way
god.
than in reality. And I hope that this doesn't come off as me being a hater, because I think diversity is important and representation is important. But to me, the
Mm-hmm.
way everything played out, it felt like you played into stereotypes in a bad way when it comes to the representation in this film. Like
Mm-hmm.
you made it clear that the response to this entire thing isn't even necessarily dealing with the tragedy of who you are versus who the world expects you to be. No, it's gay people need to get stronger. And that is just a silly way to combat that, like a
No,
really silly way
Yeah.
yeah,
to try to
that's a fair point to
capitalize
bring
on
up.
that.
I
Um
didn't even consider that. I didn't even
and then
consider that.
and then even considering like when they were like, oh, like the mother represents the nurturing and all this stuff. If y'all would have really made those characters that,
Mm-hmm.
because in my opinion these characters were blank slates. They were like,
They
yeah,
were.
this is, we showed up to work and they told us this is what we had to do, and if you don't do it, we're fucked, so please do it. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
why would I want to
Yeah.
listen to you? So
Yeah.
if they really embodied those characters and they were those horsemen of the apocalypse and they only acted out of that sort of archetype, maybe then you would have a story to work on. Whatever this
Mm-hmm.
was, I didn't even get like, there's no world that you're like, this person represents this person represents this. The way they laid it out in the film when they're like a fucking montage scene, this person is this person is this, it all makes sense now. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, because they're not those things at all in the film. So
Yeah.
I'm giving this shit, wait, just to make it clear, we're on a 5-star scale, right?
Yes, sir.
This is a 1 for me, hands down. This is a 1 because there's so many things, and it's frustrating
Mm-hmm.
because I want to like it. Like there's so many things that I
Mm-hmm.
think could have been done well, but
Mm-hmm.
just the ways it fell short. Give me a 1 here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. What you got, Matt?
I'm probably honestly this all negatives considered. I'm probably at a 2. Probably at a 2. Definitely not a movie I'm ever gonna watch again. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Or
but
recommend to anyone.
or ever recommend. Yeah, but what I will
Yeah.
recommend, uh, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Well,
Just yeah.
I had the rent. So I rented, Knock at the Cabin. But obviously I know it's on because it's on Peacock, right? It's on Peacock. Apparently,
I
Puss
think
in
so.
Boots is as well. Um, and I just got the login for the Peacock, of course, days after, I freaking watched this movie, you know, fuck. But in any case, I watched that. I watched that today. It's a great movie. So, Puss in Boots, watch
Your
that again.
star rating summary is go watch another movie, guys.
Yeah,
Be happy.
Yeah.
Make use out of that subscription.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's
I
saying something.
forgot they even made another one. That's hilarious. Um, I'm I think I'm with you, Matt. I think I'm gonna give it a 2, only because of Batista and the little girl who played Win. I nothing else about this movie. Um, Kristen is her name, but nothing else about this movie makes me even remotely positive toward it. Like it's just because it's all over the place, right?
Yeah,
Like you said, Chris, all the elements are there. It's just they're not putting it together. It's a frustrating aspect of it. It's like you have somebody that's a cook that has all the ingredients there, and they're complaining that they don't have the final product, right? Like You have all the ingredients to make gumbo, but you just won't turn the stove on. You won't put everything together, chop up all the ingredients you need to chop up to put into the pot and turn the stove on and just cook. Like it's like that's the frustrating aspect of it because it's like they were the elements were there. I don't know how else I don't know how you come to this conclusion of making this movie the way it was, when just a few like tweaks and this movie could have been. I would have given this a 4 or a 5 if it was even remotely close to that.
So if I'm being totally honest, before we close out here, I was actually at like a 3.5 when I finished the movie. I'm gonna be totally honest with you.
Really?
Listening to you guys made me start thinking, and I don't know why it was weird because like everything that you said, I think was in the back of my mind. I was like, let me ease off a little bit. I was actually trying to be nice. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And I was actually close to like teetering on that, and then listening to you guys made me think, I really watched shit. Let me reconsider my thought before I talk. And I was like, and I started thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, damn, this movie was kind of ass. You know,
I'm sad now. I feel like we were robbed of an alternate universe where this podcast is, for the one time in the history of this show, Matt is like, actually, I thought this movie was pretty good, and me and Derrick are like, what? Like,
I was,
because usually it's the other way around. Usually Matt's like, dude, what, did you guys really like that? Like, that's so funny.
Yeah. I know. What could have been?
I would have loved to have heard that.
Yeah.
And real quick, if this doesn't prove it, nothing else will. There's nobody in the history of the world that watched this movie. That's very dramatic, but I have to say it this way. There's nobody that has watched this movie that could tell me what M. Night Shyamalan is trying to convey about humanity through this movie. There is no message. There is no coherent thread that explains the rationale of anyone, even the people that were trying to help prevent the apocalypse. Their rationale, the way they went about it, it is not logical. It doesn't make any sense. And there's no message. There's no, hey, well, people are just going to be selfish. That's not even a proper message given the scenario, because they have no reason to be altruistic. Like,
yeah, I'm going on the 1.5 now.
Let's go.
I don't know. This was, it's a lost opportunity. It's a lost opportunity because I think had they done it, they built it out the right way, you probably could have made a sequel out of this. If this was an actual, like, if they were 4 of these people were a part of a cult, like they could have made a series out of this, or at least at minimum just one sequel, like
a Hostel kind of thing. Have you guys ever watched Hostel?
Yeah.
You gotta watch those movies, Matt.
You do.
Those movies are good. That's good horror right there.
Because even even the ending was stupid as shit.
The radio,
like
why did they go to that diner? How the fuck did they find the truck? Because was the truck at the diner?
The truck was at the end of the road. The truck was down the road on the trail. That's the trail Leonard walked.
I thought it was like,
and another thing that got me tight. Y'all in a car with pop tires, but the car not bumping. Y'all just smooth sailing until you get to the other car, right?
No, they walked to the other truck.
They never took the other car. That's where I got confused. I guess I thought that the car was the car. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I think what's it called? The ending too had probably the worst mixing I heard in a while. So you know how they were playing the song, like the song in the car. Did you guys catch that weird ass transition to the sound to the score?
No, I didn't.
We're like it was like like that, and it just started like that. You guys remember?
I was checked out, bro. I was checked out.
So
I ain't gonna lie.
I was like, what?
I was done.
I was like, I listened. I was like, I rewind it. Like that was one part. Like I was gonna bring up, and what was supposed to be a positive review. But like I literally I reversed it. I'm like, what the fuck? And I did it again. I'm like, what kind of maybe that's not sound mixing, but I was like, what kind of fucking like transition was that?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? You know, excuse my that's why I start saying this. Excuse my language and apologies to anybody who is under the age of 18. But
Nah, you
yeah.
good, man. You good. We need
Puss in
better.
Boots: Last Wish.
Yeah, we need to have a better movie next time. With all due respect,
Yeah.
no hate, no shade, but we can't come across these at the end like, give me the camera, coach, because that's the position we're coming from anyway, right? Like that's always the position we're coming from anyway. Give us
Pretty
something to be
much at
happy
this
about,
point.
you guys.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
much
think,
at this point.
Oh, you go ahead, Derek. You go ahead.
No. I'm good. This was.
We have beat the
I
shit
got
out of this
this.
horse for sure.
Yeah.
I think so. Puss in Boots it is.
Yes, next time.
Yes.
And I'm actually being that is when I say that, like, no joke. And I know, like, I obviously I'm a smart ass sometimes. Like I'll say stuff that I don't actually mean, but because have you guys watched Shrek before?
Of course.
Like all the original movies and stuff. I would say definitely the best Shrek related movie, and probably one of the best animated movies I've ever seen.
Damn,
And
this is high praise.
In a
Well, I promise you, for as long as I'm a co-host on this show, there's no way that we're doing the Puss in Boots review before we do Nightmare Before Christmas, and you want to talk about best animated movies of all time. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
Wait. This includes Lion King, Toy Story.
Yep.
Shrek.
This man is feeling
wow.
that. I was about to
Wow.
Like the like the actual antagonist, like for a kids movie, was actually brilliant. You know, and even the way they handled like the final confrontation was done extremely well, and something that like you like. I don't know. You expect it to
That's the
go.
kids movies. They don't miss. Like
Dude,
kids
and
movies for the most part are really, they really deliver as far as wrapping up a story correctly.
And the animation was amazing. Like it was obviously, it's technically a departure from the 3D style, but they took like a whole 2D route. Beautiful.
Nice.
You know,
that's interesting. I gotta check it out.
Yeah.
And even like there are also a lot of like funny moments and stuff too. But anyways, damn, I guess we hate this movie so much. I freaking went on
We
to a new one.
started the second review, yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
Take us home, Derrick.
All right. Yes, sir. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. This movie kind of got me down. Y'all give your social medias.
Yes, sir. You can catch me on Twitter at Negron MMA, as well as on Instagram at Chris Negron _. Recently dropped a really fun episode of The Sideline Guys, boxing focus with my guy Damian Adams. That was a really fun episode, so check that out. Got TMA coming real soon, and I'm gonna be doing another little side project, which I'm very interested in, breaking down some of these fight cards that go by on a week-to-week basis, with a very cool guest. So we'll see how that materializes, but keep an eye out for that. Got a lot of content coming on the horizon. And don't forget to follow the brand OTS Media Co. on all platforms, OTS Media on YouTube.
Yes, sir.
All right. So you can find me over on Instagram, Matt_T29. You can also find me here on the OTS platform, on 2 other podcasts. We Can Be Heroes with my brother Jonathan, and we are hopefully, me and my friend Peyton, are looking to get Boon Squad back on track. So you can also find me on there. But in any event, thank you so much for the support you've been giving us. I have a hell of a great time, doing realist with these two gentlemen. And I look forward to doing more and more episodes in the future.
Most definitely. You can follow me at Derrick_OTS. That's DERRICK, the black way to spell it. But most importantly, like Chris said, follow the brand at OTS Media Co. all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. hit that like button, subscribe, and the notification bell if you have not done so yet. Again, subscribe on any podcast platforms you listening on, and leave us a review. Let us know what you guys think. We are definitely looking to, come out with some other stuff pretty soon. So definitely keep an eye out on all that stuff for other shows, because OTS is more than just a brand. It's a network, and I think some people forget about that. So check out all the shows like Chris and Matt were saying. There's the MMA Archive, We Can Be Heroes, the Sideline Guys, Boom Squad. We got shows huh?
I said fans.
Fans, yeah, fans just came back. Yeah, another episode's coming this week. I've had I've been working on that edit. So we got a lot of stuff coming to you guys. So please be on the lookout for it. We thank you guys for your support. Thank you for watching and or listening. Show is over. Peace.
See ya.
Peace.